All right, I want to welcome everybody here to this month's installment of the National Conservation District Employees Association Professional Development Virtual Training Series. Um, as you heard or may have heard, this is being recorded, just so you know. Um, in terms of the ground rules here, what you will have available to you is a question and answer box throughout the webinar. You can plug in questions in there at any time. If you don't see that box on your screen, what I've been told is you hit the little more button with the three dots and you'll find that Q&A box if you have not been in the webinar before. I am Tim Riley, and I am the Executive Director of the National Conservation District Employees Association. And I am hosting this one, and I may be hosting future ones. This is my first host, so if I make big mistakes, I apologize. I'll learn as we go. This month's webinar, as you are aware, is entitled Innovative District Programs and How You Can Increase Contacts in Your Community. And we're very happy this month to have Alec Smith, the District Administrator for the Oakland Conservation District in Michigan, and he's going to highlight his backyard habitat certification program. So with that, I will turn it over to Alec and we'll go ahead. Thank you, Alec.
Thank you. Hey everyone, I'm Alec Smith. I'm with the Oakland Conservation District in Michigan. Thank you for attending today. I'm really excited to share one of our community-loved initiatives, the Backyard Habitat Certification Program. Before I talk about the program, I want to give you a little background on how I got involved with conservation districts. My journey started in Minnesota, where I spent a summer as an AmeriCorps intern for the Pennington Soil Conservation District in Thief River Falls. That experience opened my eyes to the kind of hands-on local impact districts have. After finishing my degree in environmental science, I worked for a company designing, installing, and maintaining native plants and landscapes. After a few years, I shifted my career to air quality, making sure companies followed state regulations. While working in air quality, I joined the board of my local conservation district in Michigan. I spent 3 years on the board learning more about the variety of things districts do. When Michigan finally passed some state funding for all conservation districts, I stepped into the district administrator role and have been in it for a little over 3 years now. Today, I'm discussing a program that has a significant impact on how our community perceives us, our connection with residents, and our efforts to promote habitat in people's yards, whether big or small. Our district almost shut down in 2009 when the state pulled funding. But thanks to a small, committed group of board members, the Oakland Conservation District survived without that financial support for over a decade. We serve all of Oakland County, located in the Metro Detroit area in Southeast Michigan, which has over 1.2 million people. But only about 11% of those live in the more rural townships we've historically focused on. That means a huge portion of the population wasn't really interacting with us. This backyard habitat program really gave us a way to engage with residents in the southeastern part of the county, where we have not had a strong presence before, the gray areas on the map. We're not co-located with NRCS, but we've built a good working relationship. We have a shared office space with a local land conservancy and host weekly NRCS office hours to help reduce barriers for landowners who might not know how to access these programs. And then our office is in the blue on the map. One unique thing about Oakland County is the overwhelming number of native plant sales. There are over 20 different organizations offering them throughout the year. So we've tried to find our niche by focusing on lesser known and historically recognized county-specific native plants, species that often don't get as much attention. However, this also means that it's a huge growing sector for commerce, with even national chains jumping in. And as I'm sure you've noticed, they aren't always the most accurate with their native species offerings. This is something we talk about in the class, for example. And like a lot of places, urban sprawl is having a big impact. In just a few decades, we've seen hundreds of large farms and forest tracts transformed into subdivisions, replacing complex ecosystems with turf grass and non-native ornamentals. That loss of habitat is one of the big drivers behind this program. This program has really evolved over time, not just because of the feedback from participants, but also because of the people on our team. Every time someone new joins the district, the background and perspective shape where the program goes next. When I joined, I brought a focus on accessibility and made most of our presentations and documents fully digital. Then last year, Madeline joined our team, and with her background in anthropology, sociology, and historical archaeology and construction, she brought in a perspective of land history and how past land use impacts habitat today, from glaciation to colonization to the present. She has a particular interest in cultural burn practices within the unique fire-dependent natural communities here in Oakland County, including prairie fens that are so affected by settlement and agriculture. Those kinds of shifts, along with community feedback, have kept the program dynamic and relevant year after year. We realized we needed to reach more than just rural landowners. So now we host 2 classes each year, one in the spring in the northern Oakland County, which tends to attract people with larger, more rural properties, and another in the fall in the southern part of the county, which draws more urban and suburban landowners. This was helping us expand our reach to residents we wouldn't normally connect with. It's also deepened our understanding of the different issues across the county. For example, in urban areas, we have several discussions about how rats can be attracted to compost, mulch, which is something that isn't seen as a concern in the more rural areas. These kinds of region-specific challenges help us tailor our guidance and resources, and also help us anticipate needs and priorities that best serve our residents. In developing this class, we have been fortunate that our county administrators currently fund some fantastic digital resources. This allows us to provide hyper-local information for the Backyard Habitat Certification Program. For example, residents have free access to a GIS interface with aerial photographs dating back to the 1940s for Oakland County, and not all counties have this. The Backyard Habitat Certification Program launched back in 2018, initially as a creative way to bring funding to the district. It was developed by our board chair along with a district advisor who is a retired NRCS district conservationist. The goal was twofold: to help landowners better understand and access federal resources and teach them how to design landscapes that are beneficial for wildlife, soil health, and the environment overall. From the beginning, the program focused on habitat for pollinators, birds, mammals, amphibians, and reptiles. We also focused on managing invasive species, incorporating native plants, and understanding the soil and natural features of the residents' property. We partnered with local libraries and other community groups to host the classes in accessible, well-known spaces. Because we use a number of interactive tools like the Soil Web Survey and Oakland County's online maps, we ask everyone to bring a laptop to class. That way they can use their property data in real time, follow along more easily, and start building that personal connection with the land from the first class. The class itself is a 4-part series. It starts with getting to know their property. Then we talk about pollinators and invasives, followed by wildlife like mammals and amphibians. In the final session, participants bring it all together by sharing and reviewing their property with the group. We intentionally cap the size of the group at about a dozen, which lets us give each person more individualized attention, something that's hard to do with a bigger group. What's been really rewarding is the diversity of attendees. Some participants have 10 acres or more of land, while others live in the middle of a suburban Oakland County with just a few garden beds. We've even had condo residents join because they want to make a difference in the shared green space. Our first class is called People in Place, and it's all about laying the foundation, both literally and figuratively. for understanding the land. Our program is structured to move from the big picture concepts to the super local. We revisited the concept often to show how essential each person is within the large ecological community, and to show that each person has an impact far beyond their property lines. To do this, we start at the very beginning with glaciers. This might seem abstract, but here in Michigan, the efforts of glaciation can be seen everywhere, once you learn how to see them. If you have vacationed in our beautiful state, you may have seen the famous pictured rocks or sand dunes. We can trace the glacier's impact to the soils in our yards, from southeastern Oakland County's clay, which comes from prehistoric lake beds, to the rocky deposits in the Northeast. Oxford, my hometown, is called the gravel capital of the world for that reason. Then we show everyone how to look up their specific soils using the Soil Web Survey, while being mindful of the inherent limitations. So many of our participants with smaller lots have almost entirely disturbed soils from their home's basement excavations. Once we understand the ground beneath us, we move on to what's growing above it. We use the Michigan Natural Features Inventory Overlay Map Viewer to explore different natural communities and vegetation across the county. For example, we move on to one of the most impactful sections of the class. These unique elements of our class, brought in by Madeline, is archaeological and archival research. We introduce people to county atlases dating back to the maps drawn by the earliest land surveyors, working to help the federal government entice prospective settlers to purchase land, sight unseen. These maps offer fantastic clues to how things looked before things like railroads and construction started heavily changing the landforms. Just as important, these early maps offer another huge, fascinating feature: the people that had already been living here for thousands of years. We see clues on these maps, oftentimes recorded as Indian trails, which still exist today as major roads. This is such an important concept to remember, that we as present-day stewards of the land are just one page of the book that is placed in time. From here, we can start to have the conversation about how current surroundings don't necessarily look like they did on the Michigan Natural Features Inventory pre-settlement map viewers. This brings us to the discussion of fire-dependent natural communities and how indigenous cultures' practices were so very crucial. We have some amazing land managers in Oakland County who utilize prescribed fire and offer ways to participate. Now that we have opened the door to the concept of anthropogenic change, we introduce archival research. That includes land patents, deeds, newspaper archives, written family histories, even rural property index cards at the state archives. We look at the old deed index to find who has purchased and sold the property for names and dates. This allows us to find names in print archives, which lets us uncover stories from the land's past. Like John Trumbull purchased the land in 1888, and after a few years after that, I found an article in the local newspaper that he had 12 acres of wheat that yielded 41 bushels to the acre. It's a small detail that helps people realize their property is part of a much longer story. We end the first class asking everyone to sketch their property and bring it back to the next class. Just a basic map, boundaries, buildings, driveways. The second class is all about slowing down and really looking at the properties before making changes. We start about talking about invasive species, and we take a minute to talk about how important language is, the difference between non-native, naturalized, and invasive. We always remind everyone that native plants can't technically be called invasive, and how different states have different regulatory and legislative processes. For example, we urge the use of aggressive, as it can be applied to non-native species that has not legally been designated an invasive, although it acts as invasives within natural settings. This helps people talk about their landscape in a more informed way. We go through the state of Michigan's invasive species website and help everyone see what might already be in their yard. Then we show them the Oakland County SISMA, which is based in the county park system. They've got a team that works on invasives every day, and they're a great contact if we don't have the answer to a question. Also, the organization Go Beyond Beauty is a great way to illustrate the oriental nursery trade plants can and do cause ecological damage, and that plants don't know property lines. Another reminder that each landowner does have an impact on nature, for better or worse. We also share a handful of other websites and apps that do the same thing in different formats. Since everyone learns a little different, some residents prefer interactive maps, others like PDFs, and some like apps that just give you the picture and name. Then we shift into a planning around what's already there, the fixed stuff that doesn't move. That's where the maps from week 1 come in. We ask participants to look at things like power lines, wells, septic fields, and things that are not, and think about where not to plant. This is where our local knowledge helps our more urbanized fall session, which has different concerns than our more rural spring session. Think municipal water lines versus wells, sidewalk easements, rain gardens, and more. Even rats, which are a particular concern. Our rural students are more likely to request information about wetland regulations and large-scale invasive plant management. We talk about light pollution, which is something that comes up more in urban areas, and we go over ways to manage water on the property, rain gardens, bioswales, and rain barrels. We end the class by talking about natural materials we can leave or add to the yard, logs, stumps, branches, and rocks. That stuff not only supports wildlife, but also provides structure, design elements, and winter interest in the second half of the year where Michigan might otherwise look boring and bleak. This session is really about pausing before you plant, noticing problems, and thinking about what makes sense for that specific site. Week 3 is where we shift gears. After 2 weeks of soil, structure, and invasive species, we finally get to talk about plants and pollinators. Historically, this topic would be its own 4-week course, easy. Every yard is different, so instead of giving people a fixed plant list, we focus on showing them how to find and understand the information. We go through a handful of reliable websites and plant selection tools, but our goal is to help everyone feel confident using the resources on their own. We're always around if they have questions before, during, and well after the course ends. We stay in touch with a lot of the landowners. This is also when we discuss the importance of how to avoid nativars and straight species local genotypes. We circle back to the first session and talk about how it's important to use the plants that have a shared ecological history with migratory birds and also pollinators. This is where we lean heavily on Michigan Flora's herbarium records. We start by talking about why birds need nests, not seeds, to feed their babies. A native area, even a patch of one, provides way more food and protection than any bird feeder can. Then we talk pollinators, everything from tiny flies to butterflies. Some insects need one specific plant to complete their life cycle. Others are generalists. We ask people to think about their own yard and how they can plan for blooms and native grasses through the whole season to support as wide a variety as possible. We spotlight Michigan's native bees. There are 465 different species in Michigan. We usually get questions about honeybees and have to break it to people that honeybees are not native and more like livestock. We discuss how native bees actually do far more pollination than non-native honeybees, including bumblebees, how they buzz pollinate things like blueberries. This is also when we talk about how native bees are solitary and will not swarm or attack. We also highlight a few threatened and endangered species that call Oakland County home and talk about how small ways residents can help. Once we covered the basics of pollinators, we spend time exploring plant databases and guides together. Everyone gets time to dig into them and ask questions. We know participants won't be an expert in just a single course, so we always are willing to help pick plants. But we want each participant to know where to look and how to find the correct information for the species they are looking for. We end by talking about how to use native plant databases to research species on what's right for their soil, light, utility setbacks, and goals. The last class is possibilities and progress. Before everyone presents their final plans, we take a few minutes to talk about something else important for residents in urban areas, cues to care. When you're landscaping a front yard with native plants, especially in neighborhoods with ordinances or HOAs, small visual signals can make a big difference. We talk about plant labels that show everything is intentional and not a weed, paths and defined edges that invite people in and demonstrate care. These little details help avoid misunderstandings and can turn curious neighbors into native plant supporters. Then we shift to final presentations. Everyone shares the plan that they created for their property, and we open it up for feedback and discussion. It's one of the best parts of the program. Participants learn just as much from hearing others' ideas as they do designing their own. And from those who want a little more support, we offer a visit to each yard in person to walk through the space, answer lingering questions, and help make their plan feel even more doable. At the end of the class, each participant gets an official backyard habitat sign to take home, something they can put in their yard to let their neighbors know they've gone through the course and that the yard is intentional and beneficial for local ecosystems. The yard sign functions in several ways. As a cue to care, which shows neighbors that the native landscaping is intentional and people are proud to show off that they've earned the sign that legitimizes their efforts. The design is unique to Oakland County, as Oakland is said to be named from the description by an early ecologist and explorer, Bella Hubbard, of the numerous oak openings in the county. It illustrates the interconnected nature of ecology. Blue jays are thought to be driving factors in the range of oak trees, which are keystone species. So in that way, it represents how each student is the link between past and future of ecology, and just how much we appreciate their efforts to take that responsibility. Before we jump into some project examples from past participants, I want to highlight one of the resources we provide, our shared Google Drive folder. This folder is where participants can find digital copies of all the documents and slides used throughout the course, worksheets and templates to help with planning and mapping, links to plant databases, invasive species tools, and local GIS maps we use throughout the course. And finally, material and resources for deeper learning at their own pace. We found that people often come back to these materials months, even years after the class ends. We also encourage participants to upload and share their own progress photos, plant lists, and designs they've made if they're comfortable. It helps build a sense of community and ongoing collaboration. We like to periodically remind students to be gentle with themselves. To take on this project means that they have to do the hard work of confronting internalized concepts of cultural identity and worldview. For example, we often have unexpectedly emotional responses to childhood memories of plants that we now understand that are ecologically harmful, such as lily of the valley. We try to gently guide everyone to think holistically about our role within the environment and how much we commend and celebrate them for choosing to take on the seemingly impossible task of stewardship. We also remind them to take care of themselves because it's so easy to get discouraged and burnt out. That's why the sense of community created by the class is so important. This course doesn't end at the last session. Between the shared drive, site visits, and continued email support, we really do try to stay connected and available as people move from planning to planting. This backyard is just under 1/3 of an acre, belonging to a lifelong resident who lived on the property since childhood. Over the years, he's seen the neighborhood shift from fields and woods to paved roads and subdivisions, and he's working to restore a piece of that lost landscape. There are real challenges here: multiple overhead power lines, complicated stormwater flow, and a yard that sits on the lowest point in the neighborhood. Runoff has been a major issue, especially after surrounding homes filled and altered drainage. His goal through the program was to reestablish an oak hickory barren, reduce lawn area, and create a quiet space for people and wildlife. He started by planting trees, then added a small pond when the stream bed he built began to leak. Over time, the plan is to grow the understory and possibly develop a small native nursery near the greenhouse. This yard is a great example of a long-term commitment and how habitat work can blend personal history, ecological restoration, and a deep love for place. This is another fantastic example of what comes out of the course: a thoughtful phase plan that fits both the landscape and the people who live in it. This yard is only 0.1 of an acre, with a clear goal of attracting pollinators and hummingbirds while maintaining a well-kept lawn. The plan is broken into a 3-year timeline with seasonal steps that help make the work manageable. In year 1, the focus was on building structure, adding evergreen trees and shrubs for privacy and windbreaks, and installing garden beds. The following year, the plan expanded into removing lawn and installing native beds with plants like smooth penstemon and Virginia mountain mint. We provided feedback throughout. For example, we noticed that all the native plants selected for year 2 had late bloom times. We suggested adding early blooms like columbine, wild geranium, and wood poppy to support pollinators earlier in the season. By year 3, the plan included a shade garden and a rain garden, and we helped double-check the plant list to ensure native species were selected, avoiding cultivars that might not provide the same habitat benefits. What we love about this project is how it blends a tidy, structured yard with intentional ecological design. It shows that a backyard can look cared for and still be full of life. Not everyone wants or is allowed a wild space completely. And this plan honors that reality, still making room for native plants, pollinators, and healthy soil. And this is also where the course shines. We're here to offer guidance, catch gaps, and help build confidence. Some people just want suggestions, others want more design help. Everyone brings their own strengths, and we meet them where they're at. This story comes from someone who took the course back in 2022 at our Waterford location. Since then, she's been slowly transforming her lakefront yard, balancing ecological goals with preferences of her family and the challenges of the site itself. After the class, she reached out again, looking for help with plant selection and layout. She had a clear vision: a natural, pollinator-friendly garden that complements their deck and lake view. But she also needed to keep things neat and structured enough to fit her husband's preferences. The space itself is open and sunny, with a large deck facing the lake and a pergola that now creates some partial shade. She wanted to keep sightlines open, so larger shrubs were tucked to one side near the property border. She ordered the native plants through our sale and Southeast Michigan natives, and also reused existing perennials from around her yard. She talked about layout ideas, bloom times, height layers, and how to give the garden a polished look, using path edges, grasses, and thoughtful placement. She even negotiated a winding path instead of a straight one. Since taking the course, she's continued her learning through Michigan State University Extension's Foundations of Gardening, and even got a 20-yard chip drop to mulch the yard. That kind of follow through and curiosity, exactly what we hope for in participants, and her yard is turning out to be a beautiful blend of habitat, family space, and intentional design. We've learned a lot over the past few years. Always adjusted based on what participants need and where we see opportunities to grow. We're hoping to expand this program in a few key ways. One is add a third course in the southwest portion of Oakland County. That area of the county isn't well represented in our current courses, and it would help us reach a whole new group of landowners. Secondly, offer a virtual option a few times a year. Not everyone can commit to a four-part in-person class, whether it's time, mobility, childcare, or transportation. We want to lower the barrier to entry. We're thinking of doing a hybrid model with a recorded presentations, digital materials, and a live virtual check-ins. Another goal is to create advanced topic-specific workshops. We've had several past participants ask about topics like prescribed burns, wetland restoration, and working with larger parcels. We'd love to build a one or two advanced sessions per year to support participants who want to go deeper. Lastly, building an alumni network. One of the best parts of the class is hearing how people support each other. We want to keep that going with maybe a spring or fall meetup with all the participants so everyone can connect knowing everyone has taken the course and has the same mindset. And then that's all I have. So if there's any questions.
Okay, thank you, Alec. Fantastic. And we do have some questions and some good in-depth questions, so they might take a little time. The first one I will ask that seems like the simplest answered question is, how long is each of the four classes? In other words, 2 hours, 4 hours, etc.
Yeah, so ours are 2 hours, but then we have cleanup and startup at the beginning. So it's like more like an hour and a half for each class. They seem very short. We go over a lot of information. We could make it a little longer, but then everybody's sitting there for a little too long, I think, as well. So we cover a lot. We cover as much as we can in the hour and a half that we have.
Okay. All right. And to that end, in terms of your workshops, can you speak more to the strategies used for effective engagement and participation at the workshops? This person works in a more rural conservation district and struggles to get turnout at their events. And even after partnering with other organizations and advertising events on multiple platforms, social media, hanging posters and newspaper ads, they still have struggled a little bit to get turnout. What are some of your strategies there?
So we have 1.2 million people in Oakland County, so it's not hard. Like if we post on Facebook once, we get a bunch of people and then everybody's sharing it. Um, our biggest way to get people I've noticed lately is garden clubs. All the garden clubs share a lot. And there's one in every township and city here. And they're focused more on regular house plant or garden plants and stuff. So when they come to our class, we teach them about natives, and I feel like that's a great way that we get different people into native species.
Okay, perfect. Um, Here's someone you might know from the Eaton Conservation District in Michigan asking, saying, this is a fantastic program and you clearly did a lot of preparation to research and build the curriculum. The question is, if you didn't have the expertise in your own office staff, who would you tap into in terms of local partners to help you build each section of this course material?
So that's something I've actually been talked to about some of the participants. They'd like to see other people come into the course, like our SISMA. It would just lengthen the time, so I'd have to change the amount of time that we have per course. But it's something I've definitely thought about to bring in other local partners to talk about topics that if we aren't as strong on, that they could talk about.
Okay, perfect. And if you charge a fee for the classes, what do you charge?
We charge $80. We That was when we were printing materials. Now it's just our time, so we still charge the same price though as the $80.
Is that per workshop or is that in total?
per person. So for the 4 courses, it's just $80. We try to keep it low so that everybody has access to the class.
Okay, very nice. Um, Question, can district folks who are interested in doing something similar get access to your Google Drive? Or
Yeah, just reach out to me to my email, and I can share stuff with other districts if they're interested in doing something like this. The only thing is, a lot of our resources are Oakland County specific, so you'd have to do some research to find your local um, resources.
sure, what plants are good for your region, all that stuff, native and all that.
Yep.
Okay. And what kind of staff time does it take to keep the program going?
Um, it changed whenever we hire somebody new. It seems to change because Madeline brought in a huge different perspective than what we had before. So I allow everybody to put in some time to change it, add some because they're presenting it as well, and so they can put their input in it. So that takes some time, but now that we have it put together, there's not really any pre time put into it. It's just like talking to each person, the 12 people, letting them know that they signed up for the class, when to attend, and then putting their email into the drive. And that's pretty much it.
Okay, and question I had was regarding your when you did reference that not everybody can have wild spaces and some of them need to have more clean spaces and probably everybody on this webinar has faced that in one way or another in their districts. I know we do because some people think that their open spaces should look like golf courses and some want it to grow up and be natural and have butterflies and all that stuff. So my question is. How do you deal with the perceptions and the preferences? And you referenced one of the lady had to deal with her husband's preferences. How do you massage that? And secondly, do you deal with any codes in your county and or in homeowners associations on certain grasses can only grow to a certain length and all that stuff?
Yes, try to be very general, and everybody has is so different. So we try to like show that you can do it in all different ways. It doesn't need to look like a native area. You can pick plants that will stand up straight, not fall over, be a little shorter, put space between things. And that seems to make it a little easier for people that want it to look more pristine than a native natural area. And then there's other people like the first picture, um, the example where he was just like throwing everything in and letting it grow. Um, what was the second question again?
Codes. Are there any
Oh, yeah.
codes in your county regarding that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so every township and city is different. We do not go over them with each person individually. We just give them the resources to go search for it on their own. But our county parks is putting something together that has all of the codes put together, so you can just search your township and it will bring up if you can, how tall you can have things, if you can have this. So they're working on it and we're working with them to try to get that so we can use it for the class.
Okay, and I'll just go on a little information on that regard. Our county years ago did that. As a matter of fact, the gentleman that was at the county at the time in our Parks and Rec, he worked to have the county give an exemption to homeowners associations with open spaces to allow them to not have to keep the grasses in their open spaces cut to a certain level, as long as they entered it into a program, which is not exactly like your program, but a similar program that had to be registered in the program for them to get an exemption so that they didn't have the mowing costs, obviously, of mowing open spaces constantly. So as you reference your county and your different townships, certainly there's ways that they can work with them to set up programs. Unfortunately, in our county, the gentleman set it up and then he has since retired and nobody's really picked up on it. But it is definitely doable. So that's great. Let's see. How much prep time did it take your conservation district to plan for the certification program before you started offering the classes?
So I was not around yet when they first started it. I came in a year or two after they started. I It was a lot of time, I believe, to get it all up and running because they just started. They didn't have really a framework. Our retired NRCS conservationist was great for bringing in all the federal programs that are, yeah, stuff that they worked on. So he knew where all that stuff was. So it was easier for him to talk about all of that stuff. Um, and then and then it's not technically a certified program. It started out that way with name, and we're working on just calling it the Backyard Habitat Program instead of certification because it's not certified at all. It's just making sure everybody knows what they should do. Um, and we don't go out and like make sure they're doing it. We give them the information so that they can be aware and know how to do everything, and then they just get the sign.
Okay, so and that's what going to be my follow-up question to that was the sign is their certification, so to speak, their
Yes. Yep.
certificate. Okay, that's great. Didn't know if you had little cards you made up, be a card carrying member or something like that. So, all right. Let's see. Got some more questions coming in. Great. Um, oh, well, thank you so much for the information on codes and exemptions. Um, and is this program supported by any grant funding?
Not currently. We did it. My board chair, um, and that retired NRCS conservationist, they just did it on their own time. They were both retired and wanted something to do, and they did a great job creating it. We would love to make it free at some point so that residents don't have to pay. It's like they apply for a grant, so then they don't have to pay the $80. And we're thinking about doing that through our county park system.
Fantastic. Okay, again, I want to thank you for the presentation, and if questions come in as I kind of do a wrap up, then we'll certainly hit them. In the meantime, I want to thank everybody who did participate today and get on. We do these series the fourth Monday of every month, same time. It's noon here on the East Coast, and we always advertise it for the Central folks as 11 a.m. Central and 9 a.m. Pacific. The next one is Alex put on his slide there about our building up your district through grants, a large and small perspective. So we all, and especially now in this day and age, are looking at more and more grant work. So please make sure you register for that one and tap into that one. You can always find our webinars on our ncda.us website on our training page. So it's you go to our website and you go to the resources, then you'll see the little training pop up there. Pop on that, and I think we're up to about 15 or so recorded trainings on there now, and they do range. They range anywhere from grants to programs like this backyard habitat, working with your local communities. And since you referenced it with your shared Google Drive, Alec, I know that we're working on one here in the next upcoming months on just a training on Google, because we all are using it a lot more now, and some of us aren't as proficient as others. So we're going to try to get some district employees out there who are really proficient at them, and we know at least one of them right now. Um, and kind of twist their arm a little bit to try to get on here and help us all get better and more efficient with that, because even I know there's a lot of tools that we're not tapping into that can make our lives and jobs a lot easier. So we'll try to get that rolling and go from there. All right. See, make sure I'm not missing anything. I think I have a hand up. I'm going to try this. Miss Katie Pfeiffer, I'm going to try to allow you to talk and see if that works, if she's still on. Katie, did you have your hand up to speak? Okay, she took her hand back down, so maybe she didn't. That's fine. Um, okay. All right. As I said, my first webinar, so I'm learning this little platform myself. I could get some training on this. Same time as the Google. But anyway, thank you all again for your participation today, and Alec for your great presentation. You do have someone in the question answer. You can see the questions, right? Who said she will be reaching out to you for more information?
Perfect.
Okay. All right. Great job. And thank you all for joining, and hope to see you all again next month. And again, keep your eye out for the notifications for this. I did want to say real quickly, if you're not tapped into our convene webinars that we offer, it's a service that we offer with NCDEA. They're non-conservation related. They're more like soft skills type stuff, stress management, time management, dealing with difficult people, that kind of stuff. We do have a service that we provide to anybody on our list. If you're interested in that, please reach out to me and I can send you the link on how you get tapped into those. And with that, I want to thank you all again, and Alex, especially thank you, and hope you all have a good rest of your week.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you all. Bye.